Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and to another installment in the N-scale railroad build in my workshop. Before continuing, I do have an apology to make to my viewers because in the last installment I told you that this time I would be framing up the area over the top of the freight yard. Well, I'd forgotten that when I went out there to do that, I realized that I still hadn't built the backdrop in that area, so I had to get that framed up first. And then with that done, I was just about to start working on the last upper deck frame when I realized that I still didn't have the height worked out properly, and I had to get all the grades at the top of the helix sorted out first. And then by the time I'd done that, it just made sense to finish doing the plywood tops over the rest of the upper deck. So as a result of that, I didn't get to the last benchwork frame in this installment, but I will do that next week. But as I've already given you a bit of a rundown, there is quite a lot in this video. So without further ado, let's just get busy.
Well, my goal today originally was to extend the third level benchwork into this area over the helix and over the start of the freight yard. But then I realized that I can't do that just yet because I've got a whole lot of other stuff to do first. I have to build the backdrop, extend it from the end of here all the way back to the end of benchwork. This piece along the wall is fairly straightforward, but from this corner all the way back to where I've built is a little bit awkward because I can't build it on the middle deck. I have to hang it off the edge of the helix, otherwise it's going to be too tall to get through the door. So what I have to do is come up with the frame that sticks out in front of this track. Around the curved part it's fairly straightforward. I just attach it straight to the helix supports, and I need a vertical piece up here with an angled end that will support the end of the masonite, while at this end it will probably be a piece that screws directly to that. So let me do some working out, figure out exactly how I'm going to do it, and I'll be right back. Don't go away. Well, here is the supporting structure for the section of backdrop that has to be attached to the helix. I have two sets of supports at this end and one at that end where it leaves. The one at this end is the simplest. It was just a strip of 3/4 inch plywood ripped to the same angle as the spacer piece behind that one. And then it's screwed to the next frame. Those screws obviously have to come out for transportation, but this bracket here is glued to the riser for the bottom of the helix. This one was a case of putting a block of wood on the flat after belt sanding the edge of the helix sub-road bed. And then once I got that piece in place, I just added a tapered block of wood at the right angle. I also had to trim this down because it stuck out further. But by this point it will be glued to the sub-road bed at the bottom. And I will probably put another former piece in at the top if I think it needs it. The middle of this piece of backdrop will just be glued to the outside of the helix. And then I have this vertical piece here attached to the spacer blocks. Note that these two legs extend above the top of the backdrop. That is just in case I want to attach the upper level to it. I don't know yet, so at the moment I have options. I can always cut them off if I don't need them. Well, there are all the posts for the straight backdrop. Actually, those posts are to support the upper level, but the backdrop is attached to them as well. This doubler here is also part of this frame, so that is glued and screwed to the base, but it is only screwed to this piece, just two screws with a piece of masking tape between them so that I don't end up getting glue bleeding in there. So this piece of backdrop butts into the other one and is bent and then goes straight along those three. So that will be a task for after lunch. Don't go away. I'll check in with you later. Well, that is the backdrop finished in that area. So now I just got to figure out what I need in the way of framing, and I will continue. Don't go away. Well, after I made the last clip, it quickly became evident that I needed a lot more information before I could start framing this in. So I got on with a few miscellaneous bits and pieces. I filled in the missing plywood in the next corner. I finished the missing blue foam tops on these two sections, and I also installed 3 pieces of fascia. That uses up most of what I had left. I still have 2 narrow full-length strips which are usable, but I don't know where they're going to go yet. Anyway, it's after 6 o'clock and it's time to go in anyway. So I will check in with you again tomorrow. Don't go away. Well, today is Friday. I think it's July 7th. It has been all day. I haven't made any recordings today, but I have been pretty busy. Mainly working on the sub-road bed at the top of the grade. This is the start of the upper yard. And we have the 2 opposing grades. The main line goes down to the helix, and the branch line goes up and over the top of it to the mine, which is in this corner and which I will not be building. That's just a straightforward section of benchwork, single level, that the client can easily do himself. And as I've said before, he's just having me do the complex bits so that he can copy what I've done and have the satisfaction of having done a good portion of it himself. Anyway, in this area, the joists are quite complex because they have to bridge over the helix. So they are S-shaped or staircase-shaped, or whatever you want to call them. We've already established that these 2 tall pieces at the bottom are firmly attached to the helix and triangulated, enabling this frame and the helix to help support each other. So these pieces that stick out at the top, all they've got to do is hold up the branch line, sub-road bed, and the scenery. Anyway, I am going to go in now, so don't go away. I'll see you later. Well, it's been a few days since I've been out here. Last time I got the sub-road bed in at the top of the helix and also on the mine branch. Today I am going to get plywood tops in most of the rest of the peninsula. At least that's my goal anyway. I've just put the first sheet up here. If we look underneath, you can see it's the one that I used to glue up all the curved benchwork. So it's recycled plywood. So I have to make sure that I have the good side up, because at least on this side there's going to be no blue foam on top of it. So the foam road bed needs a flat surface to stick to. I've just started marking out where I've got to cut it. That line down the middle is the position of the backdrop, because although the plywood top is going to be on both sides of the backdrop, I do want to leave a gap to make it easier to frame it. So I'm going to cut it along that line and then slide the front piece 1.5 inches forward. It doesn't sit quite right at the moment. That's because the end was not at a perfect 90 degrees, so I'm going to have to cut that and make that work. So let me just get on with this, and I'll see you later. Don't go away. Well, that is 4 pieces of plywood attached. Behind the backdrop, it is solid top, and it will get 1 inch foam above that. In front of it, we are still on an open grid system. I've sheeted in this end fully because there's going to be an industry in the foreground, so we may as well have a solid foundation for any structures that go there. I've cut it back at this point because this is going to be the start of the grade. This is going to be lifted up slightly, probably about a 1% grade, and then by the time I get round here, I will be up to the standard 62-inch upper deck height. There was no point in keeping the remainder of the plywood either side of this one. All it would do is add weight. And you may note that I have joined 2 pieces around the back. I could have done it in one, but there was no advantage to it. I had two partial sheets which together filled in this area efficiently, using up most of my offcuts. And now I will cut another full sheet to get the next piece in. First I've got to move that foam, so let me go away, get back to work, and I'll check in with you later. Don't go away. Well, before lunch I got the rest of the solid tops in to the end of the peninsula. Remember I told you that this portion gets open grid because I need to get a grade up from the 61-inch elevation to 62 inches. So there's no point in trying to do that with solid tops. It's much easier to do open grid bench work. This area in front here, the plan is for a lake at the end of the peninsula, which is why I've gone with a thinner piece of plywood. Not only is there no point in just adding extra weight out the front, where we have quite a large overhang, you look down there, but also it allows an extra few scale feet of elevation change between the water level and the track. Before I went in to get lunch, I glued a splice plate in down here. I think those clamps can come off now, and I'm going to get the other piece that I previously cut installed, and then I'm going to work my way back, fill in the sub-road bed for the track over these two sections, and then there'll be another piece of thin plywood in the front to take the lake continuation. So let me get all that done, and I'll see you later. Don't go away. Well, I have now installed the grade all the way around. It is somewhere between 0.5% and 1%. I don't know what it is exactly, probably about 0.6, something like that. And I've also put thin plywood around most of the front. Don't know exactly how far the lake is going to go, but that was as much plywood as I had, so I might as well put it in. If the client doesn't want it stretching quite as far, you can either leave it and scenic over it or just take it out. Anyway, that's all I'm going to do today. The day is not over, but I'm not feeling too well. I've had a lot of sneezing this afternoon. I don't know whether it's allergies or a cold, but I'm going to go in and I'll come back out tomorrow. So don't go away. I will see you then.
Well, that is all for this video. Hope you enjoyed the show, found it useful or interesting, or both, and I hope to see you back next time when I can finally share the construction of the last upper deck frame with you. So until then, thanks for watching, and bye for now.